great Juneteenth day.
Okay.
Yeah, it was nice to get out and be around people and
Right.
see some faces. And I actually line danced and
Oh, did you?
yes, it's
Yeah.
good. It's
I got
good.
goosebumps. I'm like, oh my God, I can't wait to dance. Oh, yes. Nice.
I enjoyed myself, it was good, clean, fun.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so interesting because I don't know if other communities like make note of stuff like I didn't feel the menacing presence of police um that can be in an area. So it was
Mm-hmm.
just, yeah, it wasn't a noticeable presence.
Okay.
I was at one point sitting on the ground and felt something like I heard a thud and felt like the ground shook. And I
Hmm.
turned around and a guy had fainted. And so there was a quite a few people that rushed to his side, one of which was a police officer. And I was like, and that was when I made note, like, oh, like there's a
There
police
is
officer.
somebody here.
Yeah, it was that kind of feel. So that was good. That was good. Because there are events that you go to and they just seem to dominate. Good morning,
Yes.
Gretchen.
Good morning.
Happy Monday to you.
Oh, shoot, Sandra, I gotta grab my glasses.
Okay,
Oh, those won't work. Okay, let me grab them.
okay, no worries. Um, so how was your weekend, Gretchen? I hope you had a fantabulous weekend. Um, yeah, so we are just sitting here, and I was just kind of saying how great that Juneteenth was for me. And a lot of folks got out because there were a lot of festivals and things that were going on around town. And so that was good. And yeah, and good to get out and see people. It was good. Um, okay, I am past that. And I forget where I left off. I don't think I made a hashtag yesterday of where I was leaving off. And so um we'll just see where this takes me. Visited, wedding venue in Columbus.
Nice.
What a celebration. You know what? And
Love wedding.
weddings, they are, because the wedding that I went into to in Miami was so like lavish. It was lavish and good, and I'm not complaining by any stretch of the imagination because I benefited greatly from that. But it was like I can't even imagine how much
I
I
know.
have spent on that darn thing, and it ain't none of my business.
Right.
It
I
ain't.
love weddings, big or small. I love them.
I don't necessarily have a um any kind of I love the party, girl. I mean, it's nice to get out and dance and party and see people, and I love to dress up. All of that
Mhm.
stuff. So would I say that I just love weddings? Sometimes I do, sometimes.
Hmm. Hmm. I see you committed to keeping them glasses on your person, huh?
You know what? I went in there and I was like thinking to myself, like, I got something around here that I can hook these things onto. And so I went into a drawer and I found this thing, and I lose these glasses. I would not have this on them if my hair wasn't like this, but because usually I sit these glasses on the top of my head.
Right.
That's my favorite spot.
Me too.
Stick them in my hair. But these braids are not conducive to that. And so I'm taking these braids down this week, but I'm getting them put right back in. I'm gonna get another updo. Because I'm trying to look for something that is lower maintenance. I'm going back to Bamey, and I am, working my way into seeing how I feel about, those.
Locking it up.
Yeah. So
I need to get back to her too. I wish it could be this week, but I can't. So but I'm ready for an updo, and I don't want to do it myself.
Okay. Gretchen said this is cheap and at a brewery.
Oh, interesting.
K is the goal. Yeah, that's cool.
Okay.
That is so cool, because I used to tell people when I was younger. So I've never been married, right? That's not ever been a goal for me. But I used to tell people when I was younger, I was like, I'm gonna have a blue jean wedding, and everybody gonna have to come in some blue jeans. And I was thinking to myself how wonderful the picture would be, all of that stuff. I don't know that, there has never been anything that has been overly appealing to me about weddings or funerals, for that matter. I know that I'll probably have at least one of those in my life.
What? Really?
In what order? I don't know. Whatever the case may be. Okay. So the fiance is a head brewer at it sounds like the Air Force Base in Worcester Brewery.
Okay.
JFB. I'm sorry, JAFB. So whenever I see that Air Force Base, I'm thinking that's got to be something. Therefore, that's the theme. Okay, so that's good.
Oh, that was cute.
Yeah.
Okay.
To marry the
I
head
like that. Yeah, that's cool. I like simple weddings. I've had two, and they've been both very simple and elegant and simple. Very simple.
Okay.
Like, simple.
Yeah. Okay. Do you wear white?
No, my first wedding, I wore royal blue because that was my favorite color back then. And it was so like Stephanie. It was royal blue. Everybody had on royal blue and gray and royal blue and white. And I wore royal blue. And then my second one, I had this beautiful chiffon cream color sequence with iridescence on the front. And it was like a suit dress. And yeah. So definitely different, always different, and always really sleek, like just enough, nothing over the top. So yeah.
So it did not stand for Air Force Base, right?
What did it stand for?
Just another effing brewery. Right, that's my thing too. Close your mouth.
Wow.
Yeah, Gretchen said you gotta love the name.
I love it. All right.
Okay. So
there's a lot of them around here, so I get it.
Yeah, I am not a beer girl, right? I am not a beer girl, but I love, love, love a good hard cider. I do. And so drinking hard cider makes me understand the appeal that people have for a cold beer. Beer is not, I don't like the hoppy taste or whatever that is. I don't like all of that stuff, but I love a good hard cider. And yeah, I've had some good ones.
Mm-hmm.
So, so we'll do Angry Orchard, and I don't do red quite as much, but there's a few.
It still tastes like beer to me.
Really? Yeah.
Red. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what I'm like. I'm not big on red. But there's quite a few others that I'll drink. Especially when I find one that's got berries or something in it.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
a good fruity hard cider.
Yeah, there's what is it, lager? I don't know. Anyway, Van Aken, there's a beer place, and they have this one beer that I like, but it is more like wine, but
Mm,
it's beer. Um, I
yeah.
can't remember what, I don't know if it's a lager. I don't know, but I I love it and it's consistent.
Yeah.
But I don't know the name of it. I just know it when I see it on the menu.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay. So, I started yesterday, I ended up the section on ethics and talked about how corrosive vengeance is.
Oh wow. Okay.
And yeah, talking about holding on to anger and how stuff like that really is toxic for
Yeah.
your system and can make you very sick.
Mm.
And so then we went from there into this idea of personal power. And I had been sharing I shared a bunch of stories, it seemed like yesterday, from my own life and my own repertoire. Um, one, it was about my professor, and then the other one I did this, I had a flashback of Back to the Future and how our relationship to power can make all the difference in the world. And so if you remember that movie Back to the Future,
Mm-hmm.
when Michael J. Fox goes back into the future and changes what happens with his father and that bully Biff, and then he comes back and how life looks so different, for them and their family. And so it's a, what do we do with the what we have? What, do we cower? And if we cower and back off of the opportunities, the risk that we need to take, then what does that say about our life trajectory?
Mm-hmm.
And so I was saying that we have a tendency to remember when we act in moments of courage, or we tend to remember when we have held positions of power, and that carries us through. And I related it to I had a friend of mine who used to always talk about old strippers. And he would always talk about them
Wow.
women that was still 40, 50 years old in the club trying to strip.
Mm. That's
But
a thing.
I don't know. I don't know. I haven't been into any strip clubs lately. But it was funny because once you have a sense of the power that we wield, people learn how to use that power. And so she basically she enumerated some of the different ways in which energy, she says, expresses this energy in physical forms, like um, materialism, authority, control, ownership, sexual magnetism, sensuality, eroticism, addiction, those types of power. Charisma is a power. But those types of things, as she kind of goes through them and talks about them, um, I had a lot of examples where it comes to there. I wanted to make sure that I don't forget to say that addictions, when you have an addiction, it is a relinquishment of power to a substance or to something that is outside of yourself. And so people have a lot of trouble trying to, yeah, trying to because you're acting at a deficit. you know, and I talked a lot about that yesterday too. So if you are at all interested in, I gave that example of 100 watts energy, and then where we send our energy to matters. And so if you know, if you're at all interested in that first part, go back and watch yesterday morning's thing. So
Awesome.
yeah. So I think we're all caught up in, so I think where I left off is right there at that, with the first paragraph on 161.
Okay.
Anything you wanted to thrash out in that in what's passed before we
No. I, I no. Mm-mm. No,
okay. Okay.
no. I have some stuff down here that I highlighted and wrote in, but the other stuff up here, I've listened to some of the conversations that you had, and you kind of hit the points and
Okay. Okay.
elaborated on a lot of the things that I had highlighted and wanted to say. So,
Okay, excellent, excellent. So she says here, when we get off into this, she says power is the life force, and we are born knowing this fact. And it's interesting though, because one of the things that I wonder about all the time is that while we may know something on one level, does that make it a conscious thought? You know, do we know it and are conscious of it, or do we kind of know it and are unconscious of it? So a lot of times when I think about power, or when I think about the ways in which power manifests itself, sometimes it is an unconscious knowing,
mhm.
like something that you don't understand. I remember hearing there was a song out or something, and you know, somebody was talking about how they were attracted to one another and didn't know why, or like we got great chemistry and I don't know why. So a lot of times we know things without understanding it.
Oh yes. Oh
Yeah.
yeah. Mhm. Mhm.
So when she says we're born knowing this fact, is really interesting to me.
Yeah, and
So
I don't know if I'm trying to think of the book because I wrote down here like discipline because there's a book. I can't think of it. I've been trying to think of it ever since I read this. But it talks about when a parent hits a child
mhm,
and the natural reaction that is squashed is the to hit back. There's a knowing that I'm supposed to do something about this, but
mm,
somehow we are trained to not do anything about it, and we create the authority. We give them the authority
mm,
to to be over us. But a natural reaction, we talk about power, is that I'm supposed to respond back to this, but you don't. And if you talk about taking away power, even as a people, there is a knowing that I can respond to this. I can retaliate to my natural instinct is to respond back, not to naturally cower.
mm. So
I want to
that's,
find this book.
yeah,
Mhm,
that's an interesting point, because I was wondering about that with, I'm gonna tell you, I am not a violent person. I am,
mhm.
and I really don't believe in all of that stuff, right? But there are times when I'm gonna spank some butt, right?
Mhm.
So I'm gonna tell y'all this. My dog has anger management issues. I'll say it like that. What the part of the reason when I got her, I kind of think of it like like a rescue dog, because her past owner was telling me about, and she was just so um you know, when she was talking to me about the dog, I was like thinking to myself, oh, poor dog, right? That she'd had the dog for years, and she was telling me about she was trying to get rid of the dog, is what she said. And she was like, I've given her away a couple of times, and people give her right back. And she was like, I'm about ready to take her down to the APL, but I know they're gonna put her down. And I was like thinking to myself, oh, I want to get that dog out of her possession, right? Because I was just like, I ain't even like the energy around it. So when I get the dog from her, I got her like saying, let me just see if, if we jibe, right? Because I didn't know what all the behavioral issues was with the dog, but let me just see if we jibe. And so what I found out is that my little doggy can't hear, right? She is totally deaf. And it was not something that the woman disclosed to me in the first place. And so then I was like thinking to myself, oh yeah, now she's really not getting this dog, because I just couldn't even fathom, that relationship. So I was, so um when me saying that she has anger management issues, she has attachment issues, but that partly comes because she's deaf.
Right.
And so what she
Yeah.
does is she'll get up on me, or she wants to press against me so that she'll know if I move,
Mhm.
or she'll follow me everywhere, or if she doesn't see me, she'll panic. So there's a lot of little behavioral stuff that she does to compensate for the fact that she can't hear. And she can smell, like, she just
Right.
puts her nose in the air, like, which way does she go? But that only works till a certain distance. Um, and so she's always like in this, fluctuating between panic mode and not.
Oh, wow.
So, so anyway, I got the dog, and whatever the case may be with what she had been through was like, but when I say she has anger management issues, when she gets angry or she gets upset, wherever she is, she just stops and takes a crap. Girl, yesterday.
Oh, jeez. This is recent room.
I'm sitting in there working on my Sunday talk,
Oh, wow.
and this heifer goes in there and squeezes one out. And I was like, I smelled something, and I turned around like, oh, no, you didn't. I was like, ah! So so we have to battle it out. But the thing about it is that I think that because of her past owner, she has sometimes the instinct that she's going to defend herself.
Mm.
Um,
Mm.
and the girl said to me that she used to beat her with a broom. And I was like, you did what? You did what to this little dog? Like, really? And so
Mm.
when she rears up at me, I get it, right? But I have had as many dogs as I've had. I have not had a dog that snapped at me like this little dog does. And so when you say that it is a natural instinct to defend oneself, I do believe that there is an instinctive hierarchy
Yeah.
that people observe.
Mhm.
That is not to say that that explains slavery, because I don't think that it is. I think that it is customary to have an urge to intercede, because I see children that jump in the middle of fights that their parents have.
Yeah.
I think that is a natural instinctive urge to protect or to engage in.
Until it becomes a bad idea, when you see the consequence and you're told, how dare you hit me back? Or how dare you get in the middle? And then it's like, oh, now I got to squash that which comes natural for me.
Yeah. So yeah, I just I had to relay that little story because me and her had a battle. So I want her to want to make it clear. And she's older. She don't, it's not something that she does normally, but when she feeling herself, you thought what? Sister
Right.
girl, no. No, no, no. Heck, you can live in the basement if that's the case.
I know, right?
I'm not having that.
Oh my gosh. And
Yes,
even
I'm not having that. So anyway, okay. So from the time we are young, we test ourselves and our capacity to learn what and who has power, to attract power and to use power,
Mhm.
right? And then some, well, I'll let her do it, but I think that sometimes what people do is they like to be in proximity to power as well. So I am constantly amazed at the numbers of people who still want to be in, yeah, in proximity or name drop or things like that, especially after a certain age. It's like at some point you ought to grow out of that. Through these childhood exercises, we discover whether we have what it takes to draw power to ourselves. If we do, we begin to dream of what it would be like um, um, to accomplish as adults, what we would like to accomplish as adults, right? Um, and I think that I, it has to be pretty disheartening though, as a young person, I would think, to begin to look at yourself or think of yourself in terms of your own powerlessness.
Mhm.
And I can't imagine what that does to a person when they hear over and over again, yeah, but not you,
Mhm.
right? Or even have that inclination? Is it that we ratchet back or dial down our dreams and our desires for ourselves when we hear over and over again, yeah, but not you,
Mhm.
right?
Mhm.
You go sit over there. And and so I think that that was the story of Cinderella. Um, Cinderella with that fairy with the evil stepmother and her mean ass stepsisters, yeah, not you,
Mhm.
right? No,
Well, I know, and I don't know, I can't say I don't believe that my mom was evil. I just think that she was ignorant to the impact. But I grew up firstborn, and I'm the oldest, but I have two siblings, and they have the same father. And so, um, my father, who I call my father, married my mother when I was 12 months old. Um, but then they divorced when I was 10, and through school and high school, middle school, my mom would always say, learning is harder for you. It comes much natural for Christina Scott. Learning is harder for you. You don't learn like they do. It's harder for you. Um, and so what it promoted in me is to this idea that I had to effort to do what I do. But it wasn't until I went into grad school, literally grad school, even though I got straight A's in undergrad and in business school. And but it wasn't until grad school that I really realized, pardon my expression, I am smart as fuck. And it ain't hard. It's easy. But it took many, 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 many years to dispel that
Mm,
information and to decide or acknowledge that that wasn't quite true.
yeah,
Um, and I don't know what the intent was for it. I don't know what that was, but I had to overcome that information. But I remember I mean, I remember the language and me being so adamant about getting it right. I mean, I think I've said before, I mean, I was the girl who turned in her papers and they already graded. I
Mm,
graded my own papers because I was so sure that,
mhm,
I knew I had gotten one. And when I couldn't get it, I put an X through it. Like, oh, I know that one is wrong because I can't figure this out. But
mm,
I would do that, but it was the message inside that learning was difficult for me, or that I had a hard time learning. Maybe it came from my mom having a hard time teaching me, because maybe my teaching style, when she was trying to teach me as a little person, I wasn't, I probably wasn't, sit still and learn, because I'm more active. And so I can imagine that probably my mom wanted to be an English teacher. So she was probably very stoic in her teaching, and I wasn't trying to hear it. And so she probably was like, that girl, she it's not gonna come
uh,
easy for her. I don't know. But that was told to me, oh my, I feel like my entire school career.
wow,
Yeah,
wow.
so, it's not true,
Yeah,
but it has had a tremendous impact.
that's interesting. Yeah, and um, yeah, and I think that part of how we see ourselves in the pecking order of our families does have a strong impact on us. But the question for me becomes, what do we well, for me, what do we do with that? Like, does it like you cause you to push harder, or
Hmm.
does it cause you to, kind of think, okay, well, they told me I can't, so
Hmm.
I'll take my toys and go over here. You know,
I thought I was going to be a lifelong student though, because I was always in some type of seminar, some type of classes. I was always learning, 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 learning. I was just, when I look back over my journey, I've always been learning something, taking a course, listen to a course, whatever, whether I get credit for it or not. I was just in this perpetual state of learning. But it wasn't until I finished this undergrad program and passed this licensing that I was like, oh, now I don't, I'll read a ton of books, as you can see, but that need to go back to school. My dad was like, well, why don't you just go, since you're home, why don't you just go ahead and get your PhD? I'm good.
hmm
I've 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 solved the mystery of, can I do
hmm
this? But when I look back in hindsight, I spent most of my life just always in some type of learning environment, trying to learn, but I was trying to dispel that message that was given to me.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, so if we decide, she goes on to say, if we decide that we are unable to attract the life force, however, we begin living a type of a power debt
Hmm.
life, right? Which means that we are operating in the whole, and from a deficit. And
Hmm.
we imagine ourselves surviving only through the energies of other people, but not on our own. And so, there are, like we say all the time, people are gifted in different areas. And so sometimes it is not necessarily, sometimes it is that people don't accept the area that they're gifted in,
Hmm.
and they're busy trying to um yeah, trying to I would think, and I think I talked about this a little bit yesterday, about the competitiveness that we do, and or that people do in general. And I think that there is something very corrosive too about being overly competitive with other people. Sometimes people, you have no idea that they're in a competition,
Yes, yes,
you
yeah,
know.
yes.
I have friends of mine who make it. certain things very difficult because they are so competitive. On one hand, you're thinking that you're doing something for fun, and on the other hand, it turns out, or it turns into something very ugly for them because they just have this thing where they just cannot lose.
Hmm.
And I've seen that happen in, when you think you just going to bowl, or gonna play a game of charades. I mean, just, and instead of it being fun and lighthearted, it becomes almost a tension, or something ugly. And so it is that need that people have to win or succeed.
Mm-hmm.
um and so I think that grasping, or that fight for power, or for dominance, or for to win, um yeah, it can, it can actually cause a lot more problems than it solves.
Mm-hmm.
So then it says, for people who are confident in their ability to attract power, ordinary dreams can turn into power fantasies. And we see that a lot because it is portrayed a lot in these superhero cartoon movies, whether it's Batman battling up against somebody who wants to take over the world, or or
Or
something.
even, I mean, even your Whitney Houston's and your Michael Jackson's, they had such torments going on the inside, but they had this, perception of a level of confidence. But, what am I trying to say? Let me clear my thoughts on that, because they came to I actually broke that down, Whitney and Michael Jackson, with the let me get clear about what I want to say about that. Go ahead with your thought.
So, I mean, but let's talk about that for a second. So Michael Jackson, sometimes, so what I find is sometimes we know that we have strength or certain propensities in certain areas. I'll talk about me, for instance, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
say, for instance, for me, I used to always tell people that I do what I do. I get up and I speak, or I do my trainings or whatever. And what I found is that the more I did them, that I got positive feedback. People were actually enjoyed the way that I do.
Mm-hmm.
And so, but yet, and still other people want to tell me that, oh, you need to make notes, you need to outline this, you need to do it such and such a way. And I'm like, no, this is my how I do it. This is where my comfort level is. This is where I'm at. So for a while there, it was just struggle back and
Well,
forth. Like,
mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
and so what I said to people is what I really do, what I feel like I do is I get up, I stand up, and then I begin falling forward. And when I fall forward, it's kind of like, if you've ever fallen forward, it's kind of like a stumble, and you're stumbling until all of a sudden you realize, wow, I stumbled long enough that my legs caught up with my body, and now I'm upright, right?
Mm-hmm.
And
Mm-hmm.
and then I just be like, okay, that's it, it's done. And when I stopped trying to take responsibility for it, and just recognize that, spirit guides me through, then it became like, I'm not doing a performance, I'm not getting out here, I'm just showing up, I'm just
Right.
showing up. And so sometimes when I see people who are, um I remember hearing something about Beyonce, and Beyonce, they were trying to say, well, trying to work out an idea, trying to work on the thing. And she said, finally, she just said, damn it, just push record. Just push record. And when that happens, magic will happen. We don't know what it's going to look like or how it's going to turn out, or it doesn't have to be, we don't have to get it straight in our head. Just press record. And I think that a lot of times what the people's problem is that they want to understand before they let magic happen.
Yeah, it's
And
true.
you
It's
just,
true.
yeah, you just gotta be in the moment and trust that what needs to happen is going to happen.
And that's the only thing about going back. I don't know what's in your notes in your book, but going back after reading so far ahead and then going back, and it's like, well, I had a thought when I was reading this, you know, 2 months ago. But I don't know what I meant to say about that. But I do absolutely agree with what Beyonce says. I also know that I have practiced a presentation, and I am still not mastered at using my PowerPoint to go with my presentation, because once I stand up and start to have a conversation, I can't keep up. My mind and my mouth can't keep up with pushing the button to get you to the next slide. It's like, just work with me here. Here's the handout, because I can't keep up because I'm now in a flow. So you're right.
Right. Yeah. I don't even try. And I do training. I do training for a living, right? So I'm not even trying to keep up with my slides. I just know I'm gonna click this button so that they can, and I make my slides as bare as possible, because I don't want to have to.
I'm learning to, yeah.
So, and so, and if you're busy reading something, then you're not paying attention to me. So yeah, so there's this, this thing of when you get confident in your own abilities, right? I think that there is a certain dispensation. One of the things that I was told before I got ordained was that because I knew, I tell people all the time, I was fighting it. I was kicking and screaming like, no, I'm not doing that, because then everybody is going to expect me to be a goody two-shoe. And I didn't want to be a goody two-shoe. It's not in my nature. And so, no, in spite of what everybody would say, blah, 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 and they would tell me all the time, well, once you accept the title, you get a different download. You get a different, something different comes to you. So it is accepting the assignment that brings upon you this gifting, or that brings in different insights. It's accepting that, and in the acceptance of it. So if Michael Jackson or Prince said, like Prince said, he was the entertainer, formerly known as Prince. So if he embraced his his identity as an entertainer, then that basically takes the parameters off of what, I'm here to make magic happen. I'm here to make magic happen. And so I think that, we have gotten so far away from this notion of magic, right? And I think that was put in place by the people who can't yield or wield magic in the world, right? So we've taken on the idea or the persona that magic doesn't happen, and magic happens the moment.
Magic happens.
Yes, the moment you let go of this thing and just let it be, magic, right?
Yes, it's true.
Yeah. So what we've done is I think sometimes what we do is we allow other people's fears to dictate to us this fear. So if somebody tells you, oh, that one of the behind only death is public speaking, it's like bullshit. At a certain point, you got to just dismiss all of that stuff. Override. That's what I'm constantly override. So that stuff doesn't impact how I show up. Anyway, but we're talking about power.
Okay.
But I think that that's part of it. Part of it is knowing that power is something that we allow.
That's good.
I mean,
Because it's there.
yeah.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So if you're caught up in your judgments, if you're caught up in all of this thinking about what you need to do and thinking about, what other people are going to say, you can't get there.
Mm-hmm.
You can't get there from here.
Mm-hmm.
So you gotta, at a certain point, you gotta break that shell and say,
Almost like surrendering to the power.
yes, that too. Yes. Yeah. Just yeah, be in it. So we decide that if we decide, so that I already did that. And then the reasoning mind becomes eclipsed by a desire for power that stretches the parameters of acceptable behavior to include any and all that fulfill this end. I don't even know what I just read, but the appetite for power can become an addiction, right?
Mm-hmm.
To the point where we will lie, beg, steal, cheat, do all kinds of stuff. Um, and the man who formerly occupied that White House, I think, was somebody that was a junkie for it,
Mm-hmm.
a junkie for
Makes
attention.
sense. And
And
power. Mm-hmm.
yes, it is really addictive. It is addictive to have attention. Is a high. So yesterday when I talked about this thing about power or about energy, and I said one of the things that we do is when we pay attention to people, there is a current that happens between people, and therefore there is an energy exchange.
Yes.
And
Mm-hmm.
so when you have people that are paying attention to you, it buoys you up, right? It lifts you in a way that is so, like, it can be intoxicating.
Mm-hmm.
um and sometimes people get addicted to that,
Mm-hmm.
and so they seek that out, and they will do things like little kids will act out in order for you to get that attention, because it's the attention that they crave, and that attention is empowering for them.
Mm-hmm.
When they don't get it, then they have this other feeling of being at a deficit. And so, yeah, when she says that, you can see that acted out in certain kids.
Oh yeah.
Or they turn around and they look like, oh, that one is getting attention. Why aren't I getting any attention? You know? And so, yeah, people will basically crave power, get addicted to it, get addicted to the energy of your attention, and then continuously do things in order to get that attention that they still crave. So the craving for power's sake alone, is the subject of numerous scriptures and myths of humans, who are ultimately humbled by divine design. So
Hmm.
yeah, so sometimes we see, yeah, that people are, when you get addicted to those things. Yeah. Mm.
I think that there is a natural place of power. So, say someone comes into the office and they're depressed and they have anxiety, some forms of hopelessness, especially people living like in my experiences of homeless shelters or domestic violence shelters. There is this need to have empowerment therapy
Mm-hmm.
to reintroduce this power that is there, that for whatever reason people have locked away. I love what Carolyn Miss says about become power celibate. Like they have put it away for whatever reason. Most times it's for survival. And but finding that balance that you can have your personal power that empowers you to be your highest best self doesn't even have to be seen or
Mm-hmm.
exploited, right?
Especially if you're out operating at a deficit already.
Yeah,
You're just
yeah,
trying to get back to like,
right. Your baseline.
right, right.
Exactly. Yeah. So I can see, I'd love to hear, I love this line here where it says, are ultimately humbled by divine design, because it's not that power is bad, but it has a place, a balance,
Mm-hmm.
and not to be exploited or used to hurt others.
Right.
Um,
But there is this thing of this flow that hopefully people participate in.
mhm.
So, like, say for instance, not everybody who has that kind of power does, evil things with
That's
it.
right.
It is that they
That's
are
right.
using what they have in order to uplift, inspire, to flow it out into the
Right.
world so that people,
Create.
yeah, that
Mhm.
people
Mhm.
figure out how to create it on their own.
Yeah. Yeah.
And Oprah is a good example of that.
Yes, exactly.
She was
Yes.
one that figured out, oh, I got something here. And
Yes.
and I can't just waste it just trying to look. And I don't mean it in a way that is negative, but I don't want to waste it just trying to be an entertainer.
Yes.
And that was in part Carolyn Mrs. stuff too.
Yes.
It's like, let me not just entertain you, let me give you the tools to do this yourself.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so I think that the old adage, give a man a fish, he'll eat for a day, but teach him how to fish.
I'll eat for a life.
Yes, and he'll eat for a lifetime. And so that becomes the impetus behind a lot of what we do is how do I use this to uplift and empower, as
Mhm.
opposed to just making it about, ooh,
Me.
pay attention to me.
Yeah.
Look at
Yeah.
me, you know.
Yeah.
Um yeah, so she says for all of us, the challenge is not to become power celibate.
Mhm.
Ah, celibate, celibate, celibate. When you think of that word celibate, what comes to your mind?
Not using it, shying away from my power, uh, calling it bad, um, preserving it. Um,
Um,
what
so
does it say?
I'm looking at, I want to go to dictionary.com. For some reason they gave me urban dictionary. What the hell I want an urban dictionary for? I don't understand that. What?
Girl, because we part of an algorithm. I don't, I'm like,
Yeah,
do they
so
know that why would you give that to us? Because of our zip codes? I recognize that too happening.
okay, so
Webster used to come up when you did a definite, when you typed it.
that's why I was so taken
Yeah.
aback by that. Um, so well, and the reason why I do this sometimes is because I think it is so telling. Sometimes people use um different language to describe different things. And I remember reading that the word virgin was not necessarily about whether or not somebody had actually had sexual penetration, but
Mm-hmm.
was rather talking about keeping oneself um, to oneself. So it was a sense of not being connected, and not just about sex, but on a spiritual level, on a
Mm-hmm.
energetic level, to be onto oneself. A woman onto herself is what I read. A woman onto herself. And one of the books that I'm reading right now is talking about um, a time in history when I think her name is Diana. She was a virgin and she was worshipped, and and so all of this stuff is just fascinating, the historical piece of it. And so when I see words like celibate or virgins, I'm really interested in how it's being used. And so when she says not to become power celibate, and here I'm not exactly sure. Let me finish reading this. Not to become power celibate, but to achieve sufficient internal strength to interact comfortably with physical power without negotiating away one's spirit. So the word celibate is saying unmarried in here.
Well,
Abstaining from marriage and sexual relations, typically for religious reasons, like a celibate priest, or having or having or involving no sexual relations. So so it is a
that's what I
person.
was saying about not using it
Mhm.
and not using your power, not for whatever reason, choosing not to use, especially people in abusive connections, deciding not to use your power.
Mhm. Yeah. So I
They
find
only
that,
have a marriage. They only have a marriage definition. I mean, they only have that type of definition for
yeah,
celibate.
that's what I don't understand. I got an old dictionary. I keep an old school dictionary here too. An old school dictionary because I like etymology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm always looking at and trying to look around and under language, because I think that language is so significant, and sometimes we choose words that are
That's
even
interesting.
beyond our own knowing. So but power celibate is not to become power celibate,
Right.
right? Not to become power celibate.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm. But to achieve sufficient internal strength to interact comfortably with physical power without negotiating away your spirit. And so a lot of times what we see is that people will very easily
Easily.
negotiate away their
Mm.
own spirit. And for any number of things, a homeless person might just be looking for shelter, and will live in your basement, or
Right.
um, or subject themselves to any kind of treatment, or make deals that they can't possibly, in good conscience, follow out or carry through, just for in exchange for this idea of a place to stay, a roof over.
Right. Yeah. Even that people we've seen, people with addictions. I've seen people with addictions do
Mhm.
the same thing. Like, it's yeah, they just render themselves powerless to change, powerless to fix it. If you're addicted to chocolate,
Mhm.
you know, you know, relinquishing your power to say, I don't want to be addicted to this anymore. I want to be able to not eat chocolate if I don't want to.
Mhm. So she goes on to say, this is what it means to be in the world, but not of it. We are fascinated by people who are immune to the seduction of the physical world. They become our social and spiritual heroes. And when I think about that, sometimes it is, you learn, once you start getting this information, you kind of learn, and when you are in a particular situation where you are negotiating away
The
your
spirit.
power,
Hmm.
and when you are taking somebody else's power,
Hmm.
right, and will choose not to, if you are a good steward of this work, or a good steward of what you're doing. I I took a class, and I mentioned this, and I don't know if I talked about it on here or not, but back in the day, I took this class on psychic development where we would learn how to read people's, just read people, right? Whether it was their spirit or their energy, we were learning how to tap into spirit and receive messages on behalf of another person. Sort of like a fortune teller, or I don't mean to make it sound like as sleazy as a fortune teller, but I not that fortune tellers are sleazy.
I'm like,
I'm not trying to say that. But it's not like in the sense of it's anyway. I say that because what I found is that the moment people, if you go to a party and you ask somebody to see your hand and you start looking at their palm, then other people start coming up to you saying, "Can you tell me what mine says?" And and when you say, "I was just really looking at them," well, I know, but do you think I'll ever, and they start asking you questions as if just because you looked in somebody's hand, you now have the ability to tell them something about them in their lives. Do you think I'll ever get married? Do you think I'll ever have kids? Do you think that I was just looking in their hand, right? They don't want to hear that. So a lot of times people are attracted to that because they want somebody to answer some questions for them. And so what I found is that when I took the class, all kind of people start coming out of the woodwork, right? They start coming out of the woodwork and they want to know answers to questions. Should I buy this car? Should I buy that car? Should I do this? Should I do that? And what you find out very quickly, or at least I did, is that it's a way of disempowering people by giving them the answers to the questions that they need to just live through and exist in the midst of. And so what I started doing is I started backing off of that because I was thinking to myself, like, this is a power grab right here. This is something that does not work to another person's benefit, but rather to their demise. There are some things you are not supposed to know. There are some things that you are supposed to make decisions about and take risk on just because that develops you, right? Yeah. And so, I was just like, after a while, I was like, yeah, I ain't doing that no more.
I can imagine that it would be also power draining. You can pull energy.
Yeah, especially when you don't have it straight.
Therapy pulls energy. You can pull energy. Yeah.
And people come pulling on your coattail or your skirt now. No.
Yeah.
You have to take responsibility on both ends, right?
Yeah. And so what I'm getting just from this little bit that we're reading, since I know our time is coming to an end, is that second chakra area is that area that kind of is the script for our power. Like, that's our area where, and in that power, I guess if I had to give, like, we have permission to use the power. Number one, we have power. We have permission to use the power. And if we are here to support, honor one another, that is necessary for us to be in our power so that we can honor one another. Is intentionally given to us so that we can be of service to one another, and that it is essential that we recognize, or empower ourselves, or get somewhere and get some, so what your power is, and then move in that. Like,
yeah,
but that is essential from what, just when if I had to walk away from that, understanding your power, that the world needs us to know what our power is.
But now look at this though. If it is the second chakra, the sex organs where the power is generated, but we have a society, a puritanical society, that tells us everything that has to do with that is somehow out of place, dirty, something that you should not be investigating in. If everything about this tells us to stay away from it, right? Then what we got is we got a whole bunch of people who are not standing in their power,
Right.
because they don't recognize that that is a natural part of it.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh. And
Or we'll get it and then we shut it back down.
ooh, and so yeah, I think that there is something wonderful about that. Okay, so let me just touch on these other couple of things, and then we will get out of here. She talks about uh Gandhi, and she said that
Mm-hmm.
Gandhi had a clean rapport with power, right? His desire to improve the masses of people in India was more about transpersonal. She says it's more transpersonal. All people. He was about all people and not just himself. And so within his personal life, she says, she had to bring this out, he suffered great torment over power, specifically regarding sex. Now, we know that in every arena where you have power, there are people who are trying to, also get some of that power. And so you will see people like, I mean, you know, anybody is susceptible. Anybody could be susceptible to being manipulated or used in some kind of way as it relates to power. You will have the Monica Lewinskys of the world, right? Or you will have people who want to just be in proximity to it. People will hand you sex. I've had people who offered to give me sex. I mean, just, whatever. I don't understand it, but I know that it's real.
Mm-hmm.
And so it says that but his personal sufferings only lend more credibility to his global achievements. He recognized his own imperfections and consciously attempted to separate his weakness from his social work while trying to use it to evolve spiritually. And so, yeah, you can take these moments, and that's one of the things I say about shame can't exist if you are being upfront about something. If you speak it out, right? If I'm speaking to my own dysfunctions, you can't come around
Use
and
it against me.
yeah, blackmail me with it, or sit up there and talk about what Sandra did, because I'm gonna tell you what I did. I'm telling you my stuff. You ain't, and I tell you my struggles with it too, right? I ain't telling you all the stuff, but you ask
Well,
me,
thank you.
you ask me, I may not broadcast it over here, but if you want
Exactly.
something, I ain't right. So and then she says that she used the movie character Forrest Gump, right? And that he won the hearts of millions because of his ethical comportment towards power in the physical world. So sometimes we just have to detach from and say, yeah, that's not my thing, right? And just because the world gets caught up in it, just because the world is caught up in how much money a person makes or the house that they live in or the title that they have, you don't have to get caught up in it,
Right.
right? I don't, just because somebody come down the street with a Lincoln or a Tesla doesn't mean that you got to drop your drawers. I mean, that's kid stuff. At a certain point, you figure out that in and of itself is not something
Well,
that
it's
is,
not power. I mean,
yeah,
it's not power. You have to know, just it's not.
but that's what people think.
I
People
know.
equate money with power.
Yeah.
And
Material things, the physical, she spoke about that, the
yeah,
physical, being so caught up in the physical. And so people can create an illusion of power to manipulate the masses.
that's like I was telling y'all about that friend of mine who said, I told him, I said, oh, all of this stuff you showing me and all these places you taking me. I don't know if you were on here when I said that. I said, you gonna make me think that you got a really small penis. And you know what he said, Stephanie?
He
He said,
did.
he said, it's embarrassingly small. That's what he said. but I got stuff to make up for it.
Wow, like little guys with big trucks.
He did have a big truck and a big house.
Oh, my heart breaks.
Yes, yes, yes. All the trappings. He said it's embarrassingly small.
Oh,
I sure did. And I mean, I say stuff like
but
that.
at least he's not, being power celibate. He's using his power in another way. Oh,
Yes, girl. I was so when he confessed that, I was like, okay. I put my finger right on that problem, identified it, and he admitted to it. Said it's embarrassingly small.
but that's something to be worked out. I mean, if he can own it, God bless you, and I appreciate that. But that whole notion that if I create a physical illusion of power, I just want to know: are you feeling empowered on the inside?
So that's sometimes how she said, Gretchen said, oh my God, big truck just made me giggle. but yeah, it's
Wow! Oh gosh!
yeah.
Wow!
So yeah, so she goes on to say, and we're gonna get off of here. She says, curiously, Gump was not overtly spiritual, and he did not reject sex, power, or money. Rather, he attained all of these second chakra goals through his innocence, his imperviousness to contamination by the business of living. He never negotiated his spirit, regardless of his fear or loneliness.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that. It is so true.
Yeah.
And power was there, even in all of that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
What we perceive as power for him is just, this is my life and it's showing up, and I embrace what showed up.
Yeah. 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 And sometimes you just gotta just speak the truth, regardless of how it is received by others. And we don't have to do it from a standpoint of where we are trying to be like a, for lack of a better word, a dimwit about it, but rather
Right.
just to stand in that,
Mm-hmm.
for me, saying that to that guy that day was like, I'm sitting up there having drinks and having a good old time. And just, it was so, I was just like saying something that, an observation, making an observation. And the fact that he confirmed what I was believing was okay. It was good. It was good. We learned to trust our instinct.
Yeah, that was good.
All right, Miss Stephanie. I
Oh,
I guess this is
yummy, yummy, yummy.
yeah,
Okay.
we are I don't want to say that we are
Yes, we are almost.
almost through with this second chakra. And
My
so
favorite.
yeah, we get to knock this out. But at the end of this particular chapter, I really enjoyed some of these questions, right? Um, even when she asked the question, are you comfortable with your sexuality? If not, are you able to work towards healing your sexual imbalances? Do you use people for sexual pleasure, or have you felt used? Are you strong enough to honor your sexual boundaries? And how often do we allow people to override our boundaries that we think that we have in the name of something? And people do this all the time. I have friends that somebody tells them, well, if you love me, you would. I'll be like, boy, bye. Right? If you love me, you wouldn't even ask me a question like that, right? Now, hell no, you can't bring him along, you know? It's just crazy stuff. But you have to think about, are you strong enough to really honor whatever it is your boundary is? I'm not trying to say that that has to be your boundary, but you know, some of that. Do you keep your word? I love that the questions at the end of this chapter, right? Do you compromise? Does money have authority over you? Do you make compromises that violate your inner self for the sake of financial security, right? Do you work a job that you um that
Yeah.
that's not integral in how do you say it,
In alignment.
in alignment with, yeah, with your values or your principles? You know, that becomes one of those things too, and that is corrosive.
It is.
um yeah, so
That is a good question, and it is a societal yuckiness too, because we have been trained to be in survival mode, that we will just need to eat, and so we
mhm,
do things that are not in alignment, and we diminish our power
mhm,
in that. So you come home, you cranky, you don't want to have sex, you don't want to create, you don't want to manifest, you just want to fix dinner and be like, everybody be quiet.
mhm,
You
mhm.
know, it's so much, and so therefore that attachment to one another, honoring one another, gets smashed because we're working a job that we're not in alignment. It's just such a domino effect when
Right,
that
right,
power is, that energy is diminished right there. It's
right, right.
huge.
Yeah, and so that's the next question. How often do survival fears dictate your choices? Right? I
Mhm.
mean, people will, you know, do all kind of stuff over survival fears, even though that's not what we call them. We don't call it that.
No, we don't.
We don't say, "Oh, I'm gonna marry somebody that I'm not attracted to or I don't like because
Because
I'm
I'm
scared."
surprised.
We don't say
Right.
it that way.
No.
We say it as, this is a good choice because this person is a good provider, or this person does such and such and such and such, or provides this particular need. We think it's a good choice, but we don't identify it as a fear.
Right.
I'm scared. I'm scared of what being alone will look like, or I'm scared of not being able to, you know, do this on my own. I'm scared. We don't say that. We say the other stuff.
Hmm.
That's the euphemisms that we've come up with in our society. All right. So I appreciate you guys being here. Thank you
Yes.
so
Great
much,
day. Great talk.
Stephanie.
Thank you. Yes.
The sun is shining after all of this rain that we have had. And
This morning was nice. It was rainy, but it was nice. It was nice.
you know what? I got a garden. I love the rain. You ain't never gonna hear me complain about the rain,
Oh,
because it's like after a rain, everything just bursts forth
it
like.
does.
As a matter of fact, I need to go out there and get some of this rain out of my rain barrel so I can have some fresh rain.
We just put up a rain barrel.
You
This.
see?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I guess I have to stop over there and see, actually
Yeah,
see.
I was gonna see some pictures of the pot garden and the fence and all the little good
Yeah,
stuff that
you
we've
know what?
done.
I'll try to swing by, but I don't know that I'm.
Today is Monday Marathon, girl. Don't swing by here because I got clients back to back from
Oh,
9 to almost 8. I
oh,
mean, from 10 to 8.
okay.
So I will be like, who is ringing my doorbell? It's Marathon
Oh, I
Monday.
ain't coming to see you. I was just coming to see
Oh,
what.
please, yes, come walk around. I give you permission. Go in the backyard. Go in the side. You can, when you walk to the side, you'll see it. Come
Okay.
on.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So I've been trying to get in contact with Jessica too. So I'm gonna do that today too. So
Okay.
you guys, I appreciate you, adore you, love you. Have an amazing
Same to
Monday.
you.
Yes.
Yes. Happy
We'll see you
Monday.
guys tomorrow.
All right.
All right,
See ya.
thanks.
Bye bye.